Because this
I
is
think
starting
we're
off.
I think we're getting close.
Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook, it says.
I know, but we'll see. We'll see if we're out there. Hold on, let's see.
Okay, let me check your page.
I think we're live now. I
We
think we're
are
live
live
now.
now.
Okay,
Okay, hold on,
so
hold on. Let me share it in my feed now. Share it to newsfeed.
please do. I'm going to share it to my fan page. So we'll have all the shares. This is
Amazing.
good.
This is good. I knew how to do it. Thank you.
I am so impressed with your
Me too.
abilities and your skill sets.
Me too.
Many, many, many new technology skill sets are being added to singers' day-to-day practices, I think, during these COVID times. And one of them we are experiencing right now because I had been using a different type of format to go live with my Under the Hood show, and today you're the first to
Oh
have
my
the
God.
Zoomies. We're on the Zoomies. We're doing the Zoom
We're
stream
doing
to
the
Facebook.
Zoomy.
So whoever needs assistance, I love the thumbs up. Whoever needs assistance, or is just might be curious about, can you stream live to Facebook with Zoom? Yes, you
Can I
can.
answer you? Yes, you
Oh,
can.
sorry. Can you? Can you? Can you, Gina?
Yes, you can, Weston.
Well,
I
I'm
feel
so
so official with this microphone. I bought it for voice lessons,
yeah.
but
It
little do
looks
they
like,
know we're only live from Wilmington, Delaware. It's really not that exciting.
hey, didn't David Letterman? He's from Indianapolis, Indiana, right? So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It's like you got the official mic. You're good to go. So I am so excited to host Gina Perregrino, a fellow Fletcher. It's a lot of ers and f's. A fellow Fletcher artist management roster mate,
Hard,
a
yeah.
wonderful mezzo-soprano who has made her way, making my way in the world.
Well,
And yeah, I had mentioned to you when we talked before that, a lot of these interviews have been with my crazy longtime friends who this session has been an opportunity to catch up and tell some old stories and talk to them. But I'm really looking forward to this because we had the opportunity to meet at Alex's 10-year anniversary party in New York last year, but and then we've been in touch a little bit over the year since then. But I'm really looking forward to hearing about your journey and understanding what you got into this crazy world. What were the reasons that led you down this path? And so why don't we start there? What when did you get into singing? Why did you get into singing? What is it about singing? What happened?
okay, super loaded question. But also, I want to say that that if you want to make up some story that we have like some past crazy memories or something, like something good, I'll roll with it.
Okay, I'll think about that.
Um, for me, singing is like
Cheers, by
I.
the way.
Hey, cheers! You get some water.
I love the cup.
Thank you. It's for Day of the Dead. It's coming up. It's like one of my favorite holidays.
Yeah.
Um, Singing for me, basically, I feel like started in the womb, like literally. Not me singing along, but my dad, when I was in utero, basically kept telling my mom, he was like, the most important thing to me is just that she really appreciates music, that she has a love for music. Because my dad really loves music. None of us are professional musicians or anything. And so, from the stories that they have told me, my dad used to put, at the time, a boombox, a giant, awkward boombox next to her belly while she was with me, and I would like kick to it. So
Love
it's,
it.
I know, so it started there. And ever since then, they thought I was going to be a director because I was always bossing everybody around in a way, always putting on shows, producing things. I would like type out stuff on the computer and like choreograph dances and tell them, okay, this concert's going to be at 7 o'clock tonight in the living room, you know, things like that.
Sharp.
And,
Seven
yeah,
o'clock.
sharp, seriously. And if they weren't, I was like, guys, come on. Um, I don't know. It's always just been a part of my life in that way,
Wow.
you know.
So did you start with any kind of or eventually I guess you started by being your own producer for whatever your street that you lived on
For Britain
uh
Place.
yeah, Bryn Place production house. So
Yeah.
um By the way, if anybody has trouble hearing us, or if there's any adjustments, like I said, this is our first time using the Zoom for the live stream. So if you could post a comment in the Facebook feed, I would greatly appreciate it, just so that you can hear us really clear. Or if you can't hear one of us, or I would greatly appreciate that. Um, so yeah, moving on. At what point did it become a little bit more formalized? Did you join choir at some point? Did you?
Yeah, so there's a really awesome School of the Arts here in Delaware called Cab Calloway, named after Cab Calloway, the legend who I didn't know until I got into the school. And as you can probably assume, if you know Cab Calloway, we learned a lot of jazz, a lot of musical theater. It was just amazing to be reading jazz charts in sixth grade.
Wow.
It was so much fun. And then as I was singing, I had never really taken lessons or anything, and teachers started really, you could major and minor. So I majored in voice and minored in dance. And, they were like
In
really,
sixth grade?
yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, is this school was so much fun. It was really like Fame. Like when you think of Fame in the hallways, like you went to the lunchroom, right? And there would be like an impromptu performance on the lunch tables. It was at the time, I don't know if it still is or not, but it was the coolest, one of the most exciting times artistically, actually, to find, to kind of start brewing that, to be like, yeah, this is where I belong. This is awesome.
Well, and what other kind of, I mean, that's new to me. I don't know of any others. What are you, 12 years old when you're in sixth grade? I mean,
Yeah,
what other
about
12-year-old has an opportunity to like major in voice and
exactly.
minor in dance? Like
Yeah.
I thought you would quickly jumped over all of that and gone into
No,
music for a
no,
second.
no, no, no. And in voice, like if you, whatever you majored and you took 2 or 3 hours out of the day doing that major with the teacher. So we were reading jazz charts, we were preparing performances, we were sight singing, and then we also took piano, and then an hour in the day you were doing your minor. So then we'd go to dance. I don't know. I don't really remember anything about math, or nobody, not even the teachers took it serious. They were like, yeah, you guys are, this is about the arts, which
So you
nothing
did
about it, but
you did have some kind of mathematic, reading, writing,
Totally,
science. Some
totally.
some of that was ingrained as well, but it really was sort of a conservatory type of, like you say, Fame,
it was
uh,
really like Fame.
junior high. And how long did that go? Just sixth, seventh, and eighth, or what?
And then
What?
I stayed for 1 year in high school. And then this is when it gets serious. So a
If
really
it's
a
not
big,
already serious enough.
well, a big figure in my life at the time. My mom was working at a different high school, and we had sort of made connections with this band director there, who had been kind of actually famous for bands in the country and stuff. And he became a good friend of ours and heard me sing on our karaoke machine in our living room. And of course, I sang "Time to Say Goodbye."
As the usual.
Yeah. And when that happened, he was like, she needs to take voice lessons. Like, you guys need to take this serious. This is a real voice. And my parents were like, well, we know she's talented. We know she likes it. But like,
Hmm.
I feel like we tend to put our opinions down when we think we're not educated about something specific.
When you say put our opinions down, you mean not value them strongly enough, and
Yes.
maybe
Yeah.
sort of brush them under the rug. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes audience members will say, "Oh, that was great, but I don't know what I'm talking about." And this is why I think the audience is the most intelligent, because they're seeing it in a visceral reaction the first time. But I digress. So they took this opinion, and they were like, "Well, we know she's good, but like we don't know anything about music or whatever." And this guy basically emailed Peabody Conservatory because it was the closest. It was in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Long story short, I got into the prep school there. And for one night a week, my parents, who were angels, were driving me to Peabody after school and after work for an
Oh my
hour
God.
lesson once a week.
Wow.
And then that's when it started to get serious, because I didn't know anything about opera, and I wouldn't have known how to get into conservatories, like what an art song was. I didn't speak any other languages except for, some Spanish at the time. And that doesn't help you. Like, I would looked at French and been like, what is happening?
Right. Right.
So And then that's when it got serious. And then I went to college for it and just continued basically.
So you started doing the prep school from at Peabody starting in ninth grade, 10th grade?
Yeah, in ninth grade. And then that's when I transferred to the high school where this band director was from.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's why I got out of the
And
option.
when you say band director, you mean like marching band? Do you
Yes.
mean like jazz band? Marching band.
He was a high school marching band guy and had basically this school at the time, it's not anymore, but it was known in Delaware and I think basically it was at AI DuPont High School for anybody who knows about this area. And it was actually kind of world famous. They frequently performed for the Pope and the marching band was the thing. So he was.
Okay. Okay. And so during that high school experience, you were going to Peabody once a week? How
A
often
week.
was that?
Once a week for
Wow.
lessons.
That's amazing.
It was a labor of love, you
Thanks,
know.
Mom and Dad. That was
Yeah.
a good idea.
Mom is watching, so thanks, Mom.
Hi, Mom. So okay, and then you decided that you were going to go to school to. Well, let me ask you this: do you feel comfortable talking about who your voice teacher was at that time at Peabody?
Absolutely, yeah.
Who was that?
Her name at the time was Elizabeth Muscat Catbus,
Okay,
and now she's Elizabeth Muscat.
okay.
Um,
So during that transition from, let's say, junior high fame life into the marching band, sort of, saying, "Hey, you need to do something a little more famous, a little more
yeah.
fancy." Um, what what were some of the things that she helped you discover during that time vocally? I mean, and how did that differ from what you were doing before you met her?
Weston, literally everything.
Okay.
Everything because I knew nothing about opera. We've caught up recently. I mean, she's still like a dear friend of mine now. Even though we don't necessarily study with each other because we're so far from each
Sure,
other,
sure, yeah.
but she taught me everything. I mean, she had been in Zurich for many years and basically was teaching me languages and was giving me homework to research opera plots. And I had never even heard of The Marriage of Figaro. I had never heard of any. I mean, really, we're talking about like I thought I wanted to be Whitney Houston, but when I opened up my mouth to sing it, it was horrendous. And then I remember a teacher early on telling me, well, you sing opera, you sing classically very naturally, so you should go in that direction. And really fighting it for a while. And this teacher, Elizabeth, really helped me find like the joy and the beauty in it in the education. Because if you're not educated in opera, you have this idea that it's for this elite, that it's completely out of your reach, that it's not relevant to you.
Isn't that funny?
I know, and it really is the most relevant, the most visceral, amazing art form. I
I
mean,
mean,
it hits us harder than anything else, I think, if you know what to look for.
I always find it so interesting when people have never been to an opera, what their opinion of opera is.
Yeah.
And then somehow you get them to come, and then they're like, "Oh my God, I had no idea." It's like, I know. That's why I'm trying to get you to come because it's
I
really
know.
something very unique and special. Yeah. Okay. So everything she taught you about opera, she taught you about singing. Now, do you still? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you still remember the different types of technical things that she was able to teach you in those teenage years. But do you still find yourself calling upon those now, even? And if so, what sort of concepts stick out from that time that you thought, "Whoa, like I never thought of, I never thought about how I can use my air in that way, or I never thought about how I can project in that way," or what were some of the big moments in those teenage years?
I have to be honest, the technical pursuit for me didn't come until very recently.
Mm, okay,
I think I was, natural to an extent. I'm not one of these people who are so natural that they just get everything right away.
sure,
But I think
sure,
it was
sure.
natural to an extent and Elizabeth more taught me about like discipline and about what it will take to get into college and about the stuff that I didn't really feel like I naturally possessed in anything really. I never wanted to stick through the hard stuff with something. And she was the one who kind of taught me that. So technically she gave me the total foundation, but the actual details of technical pursuit are not until very recently, actually.
Right. Well, but that, I mean, that alone, how to stick through the tough stuff and to keep and
I
maintain
know.
like just persistence alone. I mean, at some point in your career, people, wow, how do you, you've done so much. How do you, I didn't quit. I stayed with it. I
I know.
kept going. I mean, that's really the secret to longevity in this career. Um, so yeah, good for her. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. That obviously paid off. So moving along, um, you ended up going to undergrad at Manhattan School of Music, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that. How did that happen?
Well, I had auditioned for all these conservatories. I got into most of them. Um, and then I had the decision of choosing where I wanted to go, and I chose Manhattan School of Music because, of course, like I told you, I knew nothing about anybody or anything. And I had sent Elizabeth an email that Manhattan School of Music sent me, and it was like, hey, you've been accepted into the studio of Mignon Dunn. And under it, it had given a note that was like from my jury with her, from my audition. And
Mm,
she had written, I want her.
mm,
And I was like, and I just went, cool. I don't know what that means. you know?
right.
And I sent Elizabeth the email and she goes, Gina, you have to go. She was like, Mignon Dunn she's a legend. And I was like, cool. I don't know. But the biggest thing too is that Manhattan School of Music felt the best to me when I visited it. And I knew that I wanted to go somewhere like New York. I knew
Yeah,
I had to for my own spirit.
sure.
So I went there, and I have to tell you, a funny story is that I walked in on my first lesson, and she's standing there, and she has this like grandiose presence. Well, no, she's just sitting there. I mean, she was
Behind the keyboard or
no, she sits next to the piano,
okay.
um, and she kind of just looked at me, and she goes, "Honey, you don't know who I am, do you?" And I'm
Okay.
like
You're
18.
like, nope.
Yes, that's what I said. I'm 18 and I just got like off the boat from Wilmington, Delaware, and it really feels like a different world. And I just look at her and I'm like, no.
Okay.
And she was my everything for in that, as far as career goes, for 6 or 7 years,
Wow.
and is still like she's a huge maternal figure for me now.
Now, not to, I don't know, accidentally date ourselves or anything here, but how long, when you say 6 or 7 years, was that just like 2 years ago, or was that 5 years ago, or is this something
With
that
it.
has
That was like 5 years ago, I believe. I
that you
think it was
graduated
5 years
with your
ago.
master's from
Yes.
Manhattan School as well?
Yeah.
So, how would you summarize your technical journey with Madame Dunn uh, at Manhattan School? What was it that she opened up that you were unaware of, and inspired perhaps, that has led you to where you are now?
I have been given, if you believe in the right people at the right time, I have been given these people throughout my entire life. So I had Elizabeth to teach me the discipline, to get into college, to persevere. And then I had Mignon because, Weston, I was so eager to please.
Mm,
I was so eager to please, which I think we all are in college. But so much so that I was just holding myself back. Like, I wanted the product to just be perfect for everybody at all times, which is completely impossible, and I still struggle with.
well,
And
sorry to say, but Manhattan School of Music or Juilliard or any place like that is one of the most challenging places to be when we have that desire, because how many different coaches and how many different, sort of people are you in front of, trying to either get their approval or to do what they're asking you to do, and then you have to go back to your teacher. So it's like you're really juggling, like, I don't know, 12 to 15 different opinions on what's right or what's perfect. It,
exactly,
I know what
exactly.
you're saying. Yeah.
And yeah, it's a challenge, right? And like, for our performances, the New York Times are coming to be the critic there because you're in New York. So
Right.
it's not, it feels like super high pressure. But Mignon was the person who she frequently said, she makes me laugh because the things that she says, Like we have some friends of mine, we have like a running note open in our phone, and we just write down the funny things that she says, and we're like, one day we'll write a book. But the things that she says to you are they're so blunt, and she basically just taught me to like chill, relax, because I was so much like, well, is it like this? And well, why do you do this? And okay, I do think it's important to know how your voice works in and out. I really do. And I didn't really start learning this until about 2 or 3 years ago, how my mechanism works and why it works the way it does.
Yeah.
But before then, even though sometimes I felt unsure about how it worked, I think the important lesson was that she would always say, honey, just shut up and sing. And then I would come to her sometimes and just be so wrapped up in my head and be like, Mignon, I worked on this and I worked on this, but I still don't feel like it's right. Or the biggest thing was, when you're in New York, you have exposure to all these auditions.
Right.
And I was going on auditions in freshman year. I was professionally working as a freshman. And I remember she told me, I would say, oh, well, this person said this to me. And she would kind of look at you and just be like, well, honey, that don't mean shit. Can I say that on here?
Say whatever you want on here.
Honey, that doesn't mean shit. Forget about it, or whatever. And it's like, and then you're kind of like, well, I can't just forget about it. But then as you get older and you hear it enough times, do you know how many times I have to say that to myself?
Yeah.
As a singer now, I have to go, that doesn't mean shit. Like, forget about it.
Right.
It's like these very eloquent phrases but she's right.
What would you relate your success to if you had to sum it down to just one sentence? Honey, that don't mean shit. That's great.
That don't mean shit.
Well, you bring up a great point. I mean, as singers, we're constantly bombarded with people's opinions because people love to tell you what they think about how you're singing.
That's true.
And I think it's really, really important that from a very early age, we understand the necessity to surround ourselves with a team of people who we can trust.
I agree.
And outside of that circle, I mean, every once in a while, if it's helpful, which is great, but I think we have to learn that skill set to understand that oftentimes it doesn't mean shit. We can't take it too personally. You can't take it as that we need to change what we're doing in order to meet those people's desires. It's like, what's that going to do?
And it's still difficult. I mean, even where I am, I still have to struggle with this. What is this, like a
need to please or
structure? Yeah, the structure that was built into us in conservatory, and also as just people, this need to please other people all the time.
Yeah.
Just to be like polite or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Mm.
What was I going to say?
Well, you had mentioned that you didn't really realize how the mechanism worked specifically as far as technique goes until just a few years ago. So
Yeah.
how would you summarize the type of what were you doing technically during your time with Mignon there at Manhattan School? I mean, was she just encouraging you to sing passionately and to find your the most natural sound, or what were her principles?
Well, the way Mignon kind of operates is I feel like Mignon was a very natural singer.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants it to be natural. And so I think she kind of strayed away from using a bunch of pedagogy, because she wants it to be like a natural breathing mechanism, if you will. And so a lot of it was just kind of encouraging me to get out of my head. And she knew what the right sound was. She's brilliant that way. And so the second she would hear it, she'd say, there it is. What does that feel like? And that was kind of the technique. It was like, oh, I just did something, and I would have to be super focused. There it is. What does that feel like? And then I'd have to describe it to her. This feels like this. Go for that every time.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what technique was. But sometimes without her, I still felt like I was shooting in the dark. I was like, well, why does that work that way?
Mm-hmm.
Because my brain is very much like, well, I kind of want to know exactly why it does that.
Right.
Like, what is singing? It feels so mystical. These like noises just come out of somebody's throat, and you're like, wow, how does that? And then resonance, what is that? And it's just like, it's a lot.
Well, that's pretty fantastic that that you were able to find the the balance in that going through your undergrad and graduate program. I mean, I assume you were performing roles at MSM and
Yeah.
having you mentioned professional experience, but did you start building your resume with performances during that time?
Yeah, which I realized that I was also in the lucky few because MSM has such an overload of students, and you just don't realize how lucky you are to be on the main stage. Because sometimes I look at it and I'm like, a lot of these people graduated without being in a production on the main
Yeah.
stage, which I sometimes think is a little bit of a disservice to young singers.
What kind of roles did you get to perform while you were there?
Um, my most the one that I still love. I didn't love the music, but I love the actual character. Was my senior year there. Well, my I guess my grad year there. I don't know what you call it. I don't know what you call it. But my last year there, I sang the Marquise de Merteuil in Dangerous Liaisons. Have you seen this movie?
Oh, I've seen the movie, yes, but I
It
don't
is
know the
so
opera.
good. She's the Glenn Close character.
Oh, okay.
And so Conrad Susa wrote an opera about it. Some of the music is fun, and some of it is just not the most vocal.
Hmm.
And but the actual character herself was so great to play. It was like one of my favorite roles, and still one of my favorite costumes I've ever worn. And
And this was
it,
with Donovan.
yeah, and
Love her. I
it was
love Donovan
it
so
was a
much.
really great experience. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what was your next step?
Then Minnesota Opera called.
Just out of the blue.
No, yeah, they're just like, hey G. They called after an audition, uh, and they were like, well, we want you to come and be our mezzo. And so right after I graduated from MSM, I flew out to Minneapolis and spent a year there,
Oh, wow.
which was one of the scariest years of my life.
What year was that?
2016.
So was Ryan Taylor already there?
He was just coming in.
Okay,
He
okay,
came in, I think, officially 2017, but he
okay.
was kind of integrating in. It was really one of the most terrifying years of.
Well, this industry can be terrifying. Don't get me wrong. I've been scared numerous times throughout my 20 something years in here. Let me ask you this. When did you know that you were a mezzo soprano as opposed to just a soprano or a like when did that moment arrive where you were like, this is my fach, this is my category?
I'll tell you. Well, when I was at Peabody, I had, of course, before that, I had no idea what voice types even were. But
Yeah.
then Elizabeth mentioned basically always my color has been what people talk about, which has always been consistent. Whether technique was whatever, the color was always there. And she was
Huh.
like, I think you're a mezzo. And I said, cool. Well, that'll also help me get into college. So let's go with that. I don't know, you know?
There's fear. Most women are sopranos. Most guys are baritones. So anything else is good. Yeah.
And then I went to Mignon, and she consistently told me this. She would always say, "Honey, you're a real mezzo," and she constantly kept saying, she was like, "There are not a lot of real mezzos anymore."
Right.
And she said, and the problem is that so many people are pushing young mezzos to go higher and higher and higher. And she told me to make her a promise, like my first freshman year with her. And she was like, I don't care who you study with. I don't care if you ever go to a different teacher here at MSM. She was like, wherever you work, do not let someone call you a high mezzo. And not knowing how the mechanism worked, that really scared me because
Hmm.
I'm like, how do you defend that?
Oh, we got somebody knocking on the old door or ringing the bell.
Whoa, those bells are so earnest.
From time to time, we have people who are like, "Oh, your flower beds need to be mulched." I'm like, "No, they don't. I'm fine. I'm fine." But maybe that's a message for I need to mulch my flower beds, I guess. Anyway, yeah. So real mezzo. I mean, it's interesting. You say your color. So far, we haven't really gotten into how you think of creating sound technically and what you do purposefully to allow for an operatic sound. But
Mm,
you're saying that anytime that you ever sang, let's say classical music, whether that was art song or opera or whatever, people made comments about the color of your sound.
yeah.
Now, I teach um, that how we choose to refine our vowels is really what determines the timbre of sound.
Mm,
And oftentimes when we hear someone sing and we're like, oh my God, their voice is just so beautiful and so, oh my gosh, listen to this person, whatever. We're really talking about their resonance,
Hmm.
right? We're listening to the resonance that they're able to create. And again, that resonance is something that can be purposefully adjusted depending on how we refine the vowel.
100.
But I'm interested in hearing from you sort of where that color came from or how you thought of producing the sound that obviously made everyone who heard you think to themselves, real mezzo, bam.
I can't tell you
Hmm.
because at the time I really had no idea. I was just kind of singing, and it really sometimes felt like I was shooting in the dark.
Well, and as Mignon said, shut up and sing. I mean,
Yeah,
sometimes that
yeah.
sometimes, and listen, sometimes that can be. I mean, I say something similar. I'm like, drop low and go. It's
I
like,
love that.
yeah, it's like, don't think about it. Don't think about it so much. Don't get caught up in so much of this technical mumbo jumbo. I mean, granted, I sometimes like to, think for a spell about what it is that we do technically, but at the same time, so many singers, talk about the necessity of, focusing on that, sure, in your lessons or whatever. But when you actually step out on stage to sing, it's like you got to be connected with what you're saying, mean what
Yeah,
you say, and say what you mean. But
exactly.
don't be caught thinking so technically. So anyway,
Well,
please.
I think that the key here is, of course, you don't want to be thinking about that on the stage, right? But it should be so deeply ingrained in your being, in your mechanism, that you don't
Yeah,
have to think about it. And
yeah,
that was, I think, where I lacked. Was I really kind of felt like I was shooting in the dark sometimes. I was very good at feeling what she told me to feel, but that was about it.
hmm
And that's why I have to clarify why Minnesota was a terrifying experience.
So what did they cast you as in Minnesota? Because I
Oh
know
my God.
oftentimes they would let the resident artist sort of be the B cast of main stage shows and cover
Yeah,
songs or
so
whatever.
it was really like trial by fire. I got there, and the first show that season was Romeo and Juliet with Josh Dennis, who's now a good friend of mine, and all of that through the show, and
Yeah.
uh, Angela Mortellaro, and it was terrifying because I'm here with these seasoned singers, right? I'm like right out of college. Like I said, I'm shooting in the dark, and then they cast me as Stefano. And the whole season they had cast me in higher mezzo things. So then I sit here and I feel like I'm betraying this
Promise that you
this
made.
promise to Mignon, this promise to my being, this promise to my identity in a way, right?
Hmm
Which now I realize is not so strict, but I really had trouble with it because it was higher, and I really didn't know what I was doing. I did not know what I was doing. Uh, I think we know more than we think we do, so I'm sure I knew a lot more than I thought I did. But I was so terrified. I was like, I want to do this right. But there's no right way of doing things.
Right. So how did you deal with that?
It was really hard. I had sort of worked with one of the coaches there, and
Hmm
she helped me kind of get the role in a better space, and I had to just do shut up and sing it.
Yeah.
Shut up. I mean, there's no choice. You go on in 3 minutes. The intermission's done. Like, what are you gonna do? You know.
Right.
Uh, so it's been a huge challenge the past those kind of years in between college, and actually that was the year I met Alex Fletcher.
Mm. When you were at Minnesota?
Yeah, and I sang for him at Minnesota, and I remember he sent me an email the day afterwards. And I also knew nothing about agents or anything. And I remember being like, oh, I got an email from Alex Fletcher. And somebody who knew the business at the time was like, hello.
You should reply to that. Not
Yeah,
me.
no, but he was like, that's great, Gina. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, I didn't know anything. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So besides, uh, 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 what? I'm sorry, Romeo and Juliet, the Stefano. I
Yeah.
was about to say Di Stefano, and I was like, no, that's a tenor from the. I was like, what is that role called? Just Stefano.
Just stay.
Um, what other roles did you find yourself performing that season?
We did. I covered one of the Rhine Maidens because there were four women
Okay,
in the program. So there were three maidens,
right,
obviously.
right.
We did a show called Diana's Garden,
Okay,
which is actually a hilarious show.
okay.
And can't remember. Oh, Dinner at 8. There was a world
Oh,
premiere of Boltham's Dinner at
yeah,
8.
yeah, I've heard about. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I covered Adriana Zabala singing
Oh,
Lucy.
sure, yeah, yeah.
And that was a really cool experience.
So you were just there for one season,
Yeah.
and then obviously you decided to start your relationship with Alex
Yeah.
from that.
But yeah, and then Alex and I were emailing, and then I went to Atlanta Opera right
Oh,
after.
okay. And how was that?
That was great. So when I was at Minnesota, Tomer Zvulin heard me,
Sure.
and he sent me an email and was like, "We want you." And then I was like, "Okay, cool." But and Minnesota was making big cuts at the time because Ryan Taylor was coming in, and there was like a huge shift of administration, and so the program was it was a little unsettled at the time. And
Okay.
because of that, so I just thought, okay, well, Atlanta seems like a good next step. So I went to
Sure.
Atlanta, and I spent also 1 year there.
And what year was that?
It's 2017.
Were you there when I did Traviata there?
I
I
think
sang
that was the year before.
I sang Traviata. I don't
That
know.
sounds
It all kind of
familiar.
runs together.
Yeah,
Mary Dunleavy and I sang Traviata there together. Another Fletcher artist roster colleague
wonderful.
in
She
Atlanta.
sang in Dinner at 8. She
I don't
was,
know. Oh, she was in that too.
yeah, she was the lead at Dinner at 8. So
Good people. Anyway, okay, so you were there for a year
yeah,
in Atlanta, and what kind of
and
roles?
Atlanta now feels like home. So I'm so glad that happened.
You were there for
Um,
1 year or 2 years?
1 year.
Okay.
And I basically got to do some cool stuff. I was covering Stephanie Blythe at the time,
One of my favorite
which
people in
then
the
felt
world.
like, yeah, she's fantastic, and her dog is adorable, and but it also felt like a better vocal fit. So I was feeling like, okay, this is going in a good
What role
direction.
was that?
Not the role so much, but being able to cover her. It was for Daughter of the Regiment.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so obviously the role is not appropriate, necessarily.
Right. It's one of those comedic things that's just great.
Right.
Yeah.
But being able to cover somebody who I truly believe and who Mignon has always believed, and people who I really respect in voices have always believed that my voice would go there at some point.
Into the similar rep that she sings.
Yes, into older years.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was like pumped about covering that. I was like, okay, this is going in a good direction. I love this. And
Yeah.
we just did a lot of stuff, It's kind of all a blur. But it was a wonderful experience.
Well, obviously, I thought that I did Traviata when you were there. So any time that anyone asks me like, "What do you have coming up?" I can always name the things in the future. As soon as like, "Well, where were you like 2 years ago?" I'm like, I don't know. What year is it? Well, obviously, we all know what year it is right now, but
Seriously.
um, it's hard. It's hard. It does. It all kind of blurs together.
Yeah.
So after your year in Atlanta, did you just start doing a bunch of auditions and things started rolling, or?
Well, after Atlanta, I had gone to my first summer at Santa Fe,
Oh, sure.
and Santa Fe was truly life-changing. I mean, I don't mean to be dramatic about it, but
No,
it's
but
a
how so?
life-changing experience.
How so?
Uh, the people, I went there for 2 years, and the people that you're exposed to, the house audition, the higher stakes, the professionalism. I mean, everything about that company. I actually got like chills talking about it, just because also like the space that you're in when you're there feels like sacred, to be on this native ground and be creating this really professional product. And then the singers that are there that you learn from, and Gaylitha and Bob Tweeton, I mean, they were just like integral in helping me.
I love them.
I really felt like at Santa Fe, in short, it was the first place that I felt like I could truly be open to crafting who I wanted to be, start crafting what my product was, who I wanted to be as an artist,
That's amazing.
and not influenced by the needs of a young artist program.
Well, I mean, I was just thinking this, that like how incredibly fortunate that you were able to come to Santa Fe after having already done Minnesota and Atlanta
I
and
agree.
the conservatory stuff that you had done, because I did not. I spent 2 summers at Santa Fe, but I was like greener than green. I
Really?
was I was the one backstage where ASMs were like, "Shut up." I don't think that I was, I mean, don't get me wrong. I had two wonderful summers in Santa Fe, and I look forward to someday making my debut at the Santa Fe Opera.
Wink, wink,
Whenever
podcast.
that's gonna, yeah, whenever that's gonna happen. But it's interesting. Yeah, I look back on that time, and like while I had some really cool experiences, like that was where my relationship with Germont and Traviata began. A
Oh,
role where I
okay.
have sung a lot.
Yeah.
I was covering Mark Delavan, and he and his wife were having their child, and so he had to leave to go be with his wife, and when he left, I got to go on and sing all the rehearsals and doing the final room runs and all that stuff, moving onto the stage with Sandra Radvanovsky and
That is so
oh,
exciting.
from an apprentice, and it was also the last opera that John Crosby conducted there. So John Crosby was in the pit, and to have that experience, and I'll never forget, like opening night, um, I was at the cantina, and he was sitting there, and I went over to him and I said, Maestro, I just wanted to say, thank you so much for entrusting me with this role, and it was such a pleasure to learn from you. And he goes, I want you to know, I never had a second thought if you needed to go on. I always trusted that you have it. And I was like,
Yeah.
thank you so much. So I did certainly, especially my second year more than my first, come out on the other side with a greater appreciation. But for you to have all of that other experience behind you, that's incredible to be able to then sort of, like you say, start to understand who you are as an artist and start to really utilize the program in a way that could be a launching board to bigger and
Yeah.
better stuff.
I think it was really perfect for me in that way. For me as an artist, I loved that was my step in there.
Yeah.
I would have loved to be there in my early 20s, but I was
Well, it's not all
always
it's cracked up.
rejected. So,
It's not all it's cracked up to be. Let me tell you.
well, now I'm like, okay, this was great. It happened just the way I would want it to. Because
Yeah.
that house audition, I would have been absolutely terrified if I was green.
I
Like,
get
look at
nervous
you.
thinking.
See, you
I get
know.
nervous thinking about it right now.
You
I'm like,
know.
oh my God. And I mean, like, what? I don't even know what I was thinking. I don't even. I mean, but again, when you had your house audition, I'm guessing you knew exactly which aria you should present because you already knew yourself. And no,
Okay. No, no. Because for me, I'm someone, and I don't even know how to do this without getting on a long tangent, so help me. I'm somebody who really has kind of struggled with my artistry in a sense. Even after launching with Alex, I love different music. Not I love operatic music, but I love different repertoire in the operatic repertoire. So and also the music that I know that sounds the best in my voice, like Dalila, like Carmen, like now, those things that I know and could sing now. People always look at you and they say, "Well, you're too young. You can't sing that right now."
right, right.
Oh, maybe someone's calling me to sing them.
Hello. Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that. Um,
You hung up on Samson.
I did. No, and so they always mention that you're too young, right? And so then you're kind of like, well, then what can I sing right now? As someone who's a real mezzo, this
Right,
is a serious problem, is picking out repertoire, because it's not like I have a whole fach to pick from in a
right,
way.
right.
I don't know. And so for my house audition, I was doing a lot of. I was my first year. I did Popea.
Oh, okay.
I did Ottavia
Yeah.
because it's a whole scena, and as a mezzo, I never get scenas. And I remember Gaylitha saying to us the first day, she goes, "All right, don't sing an aria that's 6 minutes long because you probably can't hold the audience that long anyway." Blah blah blah. Like she was saying this to all of us sitting there, right? And we're all like
Yeah.
super green and nervous.
Right.
And so I saw it as a challenge. I thought, okay, I'll give you a 5 minute aria then. So I sang her Popea, and I remember being like, this scene is so incredible. But then I remember people being like, why did you sing Popea in Santa Fe? Do you know what I mean?
Like instead of.
I don't know. I don't know what they were looking for instead of like
Isn't that
Mozart.
great? Isn't that the best thing? Why did you do that? Oh, I'm sorry. What should I have done? Well, I don't know.
That's the thing,
But
though.
not that.
And it
Oh,
wasn't
thank
even
you.
like the people at Santa Fe were like, I think this is a great fit. I think you do this brilliantly. But it was like the audience, but Alex was like, Gina, this is great. Like, I think this is great. He's like, I think it's a little confusing for people who whatever, but he's like, it's going to be great. And I did it, and he was like, this was brilliant. And then people were like, yeah, I don't know, like, why not Mozart?
Mm,
And let me just clarify that as a mezzo who does not feel comfortable singing Mozart,
yeah.
I asked Lisette Oropesa this because
Yeah, sure.
I was like, there's got to be something wrong with me. I don't like singing Mozart. And I was like, this is a technical thing. And actually, I asked Lisette this, and she said, Gina, she was like, some people are not. She's like, okay, I think if you go to the gym and you get on a rowing machine, that's great. If you get on and you go to the gym and you get on a bike, that's great. But it doesn't mean you have to do the Tour de France,
Right.
right?
Right.
And she's like, yeah, put Mozart in your practice, but I don't believe that everybody is meant to sing it.
Sure.
And Mignon had said this, but everybody else after Mignon was like, no, you have to sing it. And I was like, oh, God, I don't know what to do. So it was such a dilemma for somebody who doesn't feel comfortable singing it.
Well, especially when we are faced when these applications request, there must be one aria from the 17th century, there must be another aria from the 17 and 1800s, there must be a 21st century opera, there must be an Italian, a French, and a German. It's
Right?
like we feel like we have to be all things to all people.
Right.
And in that attempt, because I'm sorry, rarely does anyone sort of go, oh, no problem, let me just
Yeah.
open my book, they're all here. Uh, I think that we quickly find like what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, you as a seasoned singer, you also know that the professional world, and I'm talking about really professional because I'm kind of in this world where I was moving out of young artist into professional.
Yeah.
And really truly professional world does not make you do that.
Well,
It's
and
like
that's
you
what
choose what you do well, you present what you do well. If you have six bel canto arias, so be it. But in young artist program, why do they assume?
I think, I mean, perhaps they're doing their due diligence and making certain that everyone is a well-rounded artist and that we want to make sure that,
Sure.
everyone has, these sort of check marks on everyone's checking the boxes that need to be checked. But you're right. Once you sort of make it through, as you are quickly to do so, and land on the other side, everything is about the niche. What is your special
Exactly.
little, what do you do that's unique? And you say six arias, try three, I
Well,
mean,
whatever, yeah, but yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
I
Even
mean,
even less than that, right?
it's just about doing what you do, being confident in who you are, and with those characters and with that repertoire, and branding yourself. I mean, that's what it
Exactly.
essentially is it boils down to, is how does one brand themselves and make their way. I'm actually teaching an advanced opera class at UMKC. I'm on full-time faculty there now, and we were just talking about this the other day about the importance of social media and networking, and how does one brand themselves so that as they make their way through this, how do they start to become more grounded in who they are as an artist and the repertoire that they're going to sort of live within. But so
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad that Lisette sort of set you straight and said you don't have to ride the Tour de France.
Oh my
You're
gosh.
fine. Just get on the bike and ride it every once in a while.
Right, exactly. She was like, if you're at the gym, that's great. But
And I'm sure that there's some stuff in Parto Parto that can help you technically, when you're in your
absolutely,
practice room. But that's not to say that you need to go sing, Sesto or whatever.
the entire role. Which
Hmm.
not to say I couldn't either, but is it something that like feels the best in my voice? No.
Sure.
You know? So,
So, you mentioned 3 years ago you started really understanding much more about technique.
yeah.
You find a teacher that really clicked, and
Yeah.
who
When I
was
when I
Weston?
arrived to Atlanta, I met David Okerlund, who actually
Mm,
teaches at FSU.
yeah.
And he basically, I had just come out of Minnesota, like I told you, and at Minnesota I was kind of just like pushing myself to kind of just at least like get it right, but I didn't know what I was doing, so I think I might have gotten myself more confused than I was in college. And so then he is a total pedagogue and was basically like, This is how it works. I mean, anatomically could tell you anything.
Right.
I told him that my dad was having surgery, and he was able to tell me all the tissues and bones in like near your humerus, and basically like telling me about swelling, and I was like, David, that's exactly what the doctor said. And he's like, I know.
Good for David. That's amazing.
Like, just vocally, now I know my mechanism in and out because of this.
So, question again, what sort of adjustments did you make from what you were doing before, or what sort of, you know, I don't know, top 3 or 4 things do you think about in your technique that allows an easier access or a more productful, you know, productful? Is that a word? More
Produceful.
producible. Well, I am sipping on the productive
Wow.
resonance or sound. I mean, what is it that you're doing now?
The biggest thing that I had to do was get my tongue out of the way.
Uh-huh.
You know, our as singers, we have like one of the biggest muscles in the body in our mouth, and which can help us or hurt us. And for me, I was producing at the time, because I got myself all tangled up in my own stuff. This was not what Mignon was telling me, to clarify.
Sure,
I did this myself. That I was like listening to myself and pulling back and trying to listen for the color or whatever. I don't know what I was doing, but getting my tongue out of the way. A big thing has been building stamina, learning that it's not just about, everybody talks about it just being about breath, basically. They're like, oh, if the breath is right, then it's right. And what David also teaches is that, yeah, I mean, what is it, 90% or 80% or a giant percent of it is your diaphragm and your breath control, right? But he says the other 10, the other 20, whatever percent is being able to get cord closure. And
I was just going to say,
yeah,
breath is fine, but at some point we have to resist that breath.
Right,
And that
exactly.
comes with the closure in the cords.
And closing the cords. And I had no idea, obviously, how the mechanism even worked. And after looking at for me, what worked was looking at some charts and then looking with him and learning about my anatomy, because also as a woman, it's very different from a almost 7-foot man.
There you go.
But he knows enough about how to get you there to where you can learn yourself. So learning about cord closure was a big one. Not being afraid to get the cord closure. And now I'm finding that right now in this moment, I'm kind of cultivating more high notes and being able to have this like lift here and have the diaphragm work. But the biggest thing is those cords closing, because if the cords don't close, you could be flapping all day. And this is like working way harder than it needs to.
Right.
I'm not saying it doesn't have to work hard, but I'm like, whatever, right? And it doesn't have to be that hard.
One of my lessons this past week, I was helping a young woman find that closure in her cords, and one of the gentle exercises that I use is to sort of find that closure by saying,
That's what David does too.
and with that, oh, okay. So with that, or another one that I got from my friend who I did an interview with, Dr. Kimberly Gratland James, she actually starts it with together and goes, so that the idea is that you're already starting with closure. And so you can kind of feel that closure in the glottis, right?
Yeah.
And when she did it correctly, this young student of mine, I was like, okay, so what does that feel like? And she was like, oh, kind of like how, like when I'm working and I'm doing my crunches. And I go, okay, but it felt like you were doing a crunch. Okay, well, not as intense as a crunch. And I go, okay, that's important to note, right? So that when we are engaged in our lower torso, it's not that we're trying to, lift a piano or do a crunch. Right. And she was like, I go, so kind of like a gentle crunch. And she was like, yeah, gentle crunch. And so we came up with the gentle crunch. But you're right. It's like the lower torso does have to do the bulk of the work, so that this doesn't do any work, right? But that resistance to the breath is. I mean,
it's integral. You can't do it without it. And I hesitate. I know that your podcast is all about talking about technique, but sometimes it seems taboo to talk about it because everybody arrives usually similar, not at the same place, but to similar places by doing all different things, and then people get afraid of other people's words,
But
you
you
know,
know
like
what? That's the
glottis,
whole
and
that
it's like,
I love this conversation. What you just said, like that is the whole point I created this thing is to talk about these taboo things that people are afraid to talk about. Because, like I said, what do we do the first day on a gig? Let's do a sing through of the entire show. And you're meeting new people maybe for the first time. You're hearing people
yeah,
for the first time. I'll never forget the first time that I sang the role of Ford in Falstaff. Stephanie Blythe was the Quickly. And I remember after that sing through, and Peter Rose was the Falstaff. I don't know if you know Peter, a British bass who's just
I know
phenomenal.
of Peter.
So after the first run through, or sing through of the whole piece, um, I immediately went up. I was like, "Oh my God, your voice is amazing! It is such a pleasure to sing." And she was so kind and generous. Was like, "You sound like $1,000,000." Blah blah blah. But it was like I so badly wanted to be like, "How do you do that? Like, what do you? How do you? How technically? What do you think about how to do these things?" But it's almost like you say. It's like those kind of conversations are typically like never had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we just sort of admire from a distance and we say, God, you sound amazing. It's so great to hear you. Now we might have our own opinions about, I wonder what she does when she thinks about her eval. I wonder how she, you know what I mean? Like whatever it might
Yeah.
be. But that's why I created this was to sort of lift off that shade of mystery and to talk about because while it might be a little bit different, with like terminology, I mean, I think that good singing is good singing, and
Yeah.
I think that while we might come at it from a different angle or from a different perspective, at the end of the day, there's got to be air fueling the tone, and there's got to be resistance to that air, right? And so
Yeah.
whether you think about it or not, you're doing it in some way or another. And who knows, maybe one of these talks or a few of these different talks can help a young singer or even a veteran singer who's rethinking their technique or whatever to hear how something has worked successfully for an artist. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great because it's also lifting a veil of not just mystery, but lifting this shade of shame. There's so much shame in being an artist sometimes that we take on. And I think there's like a shame that comes in with people talking to other people about technique. Some people might
talk about
think that
that. Yeah.
they don't want to mention it. I don't want to. I want to ask somebody, "Oh my God, how do you do that?" But I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing, or that
Yeah.
or I don't know. And that's always kind of been my experience, because I have a very inward experience with a lot of things. So some people might not even know what I'm talking about. But I think there's a lot of that as well, mystery and shame in talking about technique sometimes.
Right. Sorry, I'm remembering to look at the comments. Brian email says, sure, just keep the chords loose and not flexed. Exactly. So as long as the chords themselves don't become these rigid points of flexion in that closure,
Right. Right.
vocal cord closure or glottal closure. Well, yeah, I mean, Christopher Doran says vocal cord closure or glottal closure. And then he says those programs aren't usually run by people who had a singing career. Yeah, I mean, closure in
Hold
the
on, I'm going to
chords.
react to that.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
That was what we said I would react to if we didn't want to talk about something.
The sign.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
you're right.
I
Sometimes.
think within when all of this, like I said, people come at it with different terminology, different ideas. But I'm sorry to interrupt. I just noticed that some people
No, no,
were
no. I think
commenting.
it's great.
Um, I would love to hear a little bit more though what you were saying about sometimes we feel shame as an artist because please keep going.
It's hard for me to totally articulate, and it's also not completely on the thread of technique. So I hope that that's okay.
No, no, it's
Um,
fine.
I think as artists, oh, it's so hard for me to articulate. There can be, especially as young artists.
Mhm.
Because that's my main experience right now, is
Sure.
coming out of that. But the transition of coming out of that and kind of finding who you are and also how you fit into a business that sometimes you don't see the good sides of the business
Hmm.
in a way. And you can feel, oh, how do I describe it? I'm sorry. There's just sometimes shame in the process of finding who you are and who you want to be and how you want to brand yourself, and being okay with being that leader in something, even if it doesn't necessarily get you in the forefront at first. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
I
I
don't know how
think,
to articulate it, but
well, I think that throughout the process, there's not like an instruction guide. There's no map, that says like, oh, you want to be successful? Here, just do this, 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 and this. So everybody is on this
exactly.
journey, and I think, are always asking ourselves this question of like, am I doing this right? Is this the right decision? Is this the right decision? And
Right.
I think through that, to your point, I think we do sort of, there's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of moments of anxiety, and I think that, navigating that journey, I think is certainly a tricky and complicated path that's a little bit different for everybody. But you had mentioned in an email to me that one of the things that you have recently also gotten into is meditation.
Yeah, I had been. I recently actually. I regretfully have gotten a little out of the habit with COVID, and which is when you probably should be doing it the most. But
Well, yeah.
um, what are you going to do? But for the past 2 years, basically, I had done it for almost an hour every day,
Wow.
and I really feel like my problems technically were directly linked with emotional and mental feelings, you know
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
know and so I think that I really feel like mindfulness in any way possible, it doesn't have to necessarily be meditation, but to be able to look at those things as an artist and be able to return back to that space of why do we do this, and just being able to remind yourself of the important questions. So I recently had a conversation with a very good friend of mine who's sort of like a creative coach of mine, if you will.
Okay.
And we had talked about these two voices, basically. And there's this voice in my head who is like an executive badass, and she seems to ask me a lot of really hard questions.
Okay.
And sometimes she'll ask me questions like, why why would this person want to hear you? Or who are you to think that you can sing that? Or this and this and this, right? But she's also the same person who would ask me, maybe who would also tell me, maybe we shouldn't go down this alleyway. So she's someone to listen to, and she has good thoughts, right?
Hmm.
But then there's another part of the artistic voice that is the child, who for me is not as cultivated, that I'm working on in mindfulness to do so. But this child who finds play in all of this, and who can answer that jaded person's question. Of course this person would want to hear this. Of course you could do this. Of course this, like a child would play, and finding your creativity in that way of returning back to like, why did I love this as a kid?
Yeah.
It's not all just about getting it right.
Right. Yeah. What is
You know.
right? What is
Yeah.
what is perfect?
Yeah. But that's really, I mean, people can say what is perfect, but that really needs to hit home for a lot of people. Because I used to say, well, I'm not trying to be perfect. Well, I was. you know?
I hear you. I hear you.
I don't know.
So what you mentioned COVID, right? We're all going through this, figuring out what we're going to do next. What are some of the next things coming up for you?
I am going to Torino. Torino. I'm returning to the motherland to sing with Teatro Reggio.
That's amazing.
And it's going to be a 2-year contract, and I'm super excited to be living there.
That is so incredible. That is an amazing opera house. It is a beautiful opera house. It's a super cool town. Um, I've been there. That's incredible. And when does that begin?
Uh, should be December 1st, We don't know. It's been pushed back and back and back, but understandably. But
Sure, sure. Well, that's incredible. Do you have any like final thoughts? We should probably wrap up, but do you like some final thoughts thinking back about your journey and your path? Like what, you know, what can you tell some of the younger artists who might be watching this, you know, to look out for, or to sort of, I mean, I love the shut up and sing and don't pay any attention to that bullshit or whatever it was. What was the
right.
quote?
Um, that doesn't mean shit or
That
something.
doesn't mean shit.
But people are gonna be like, "Wow, she's so eloquent." Like,
Here's my things. That I mean shit. Shut up and sing.
it's good advice.
It's true. It is true. These are all good things to think about. Anything else?
um, I I would just say keep singing, keep singing. Like, also you have to. Another thing for Mignon, you have to just love it, because if there's anything else that you can imagine yourself doing, do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you just keep singing. You
Why
know,
do you think people say that? Why do you think people say if there's anything else that you can think of that you would love to do, that's what you should be doing?
because you have to do it. I think. I
Yeah.
think in order to do it also at the level that I've always known I could and always wanted to and had like this burning desire to do,
Yeah.
then I have to do it. It's not even about like, yeah, I mean, it's about loving it, and I obviously do. It's like my passion. I mean, even when I talk about it, I get chills talking about Santa Fe. But it's less about even loving it. It's like you have to do it. It's just like it's your 10 in the world. It's your number 10.
Right. Right.
You know, like it makes you feel 10 out of 10.
Right. No, I couldn't agree with you more. That's exactly it. Well,
I don't know. And but
you
I
do
just have to
know.
say, she would always say that. She would say, honey, this is a wonderful, beautiful, terrible career.
So true. It is
Right?
so true. Like it is amazingly miserable. Like it is. It's true though.
And yet so, in sometimes, so transcendent
Oh my
in
God.
certain beautiful, like, you know,
Some of the most amazing moments that you could experience.
and people,
Yeah.
the people are great. Our friends, like our collective colleagues, people are, I love them,
Yeah.
you
No,
know?
like I said, it's like we don't even know each other all that well, but God, I wish we could go grab a drink right now and hang
I
out.
know. Well, I do have a drink here. I'm not drinking it.
Well, cheers. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us about your journey and your technical well, what is it? The journey itself, or the transition from I don't know. It's amazing to me that you got into this at such an early age, and by the time you were 12, you were already like you could have been on a TV show of fame.
I don't think that's true, but
Well, you were
maybe,
living the
maybe
life
not
of
for
it.
singing, but
You were living the life of the TV show.
I was.
This
I
is
was.
true. So anyway, well, thank you so much. I am so glad that we were able to do this. I about 3 minutes ago realized that I did not hit record on our Zoom meeting. So I will
What
try
does
to
that
find a
mean?
way. Well, what that means is that I can't download. I hope that I can download it from Facebook, but I will need some technical help from my friends, I think, to figure out how to take this video and then upload it to YouTube.
Hmm.
Um, so no worries, we will figure it out. But
And I'm trying to react with a thumbs down, but they don't have it. They only have positive reactions.
well, I I'll figure it out. We will try to get this up on YouTube as soon as possible. So yeah, youtube.com/Weston Hurt are the archived episodes. But yeah, hopefully yours will be there very soon. I will make sure of it. All right. Well, thank you so much. A quick healing to your mother, and
Thank you.
I hope that you guys have a good rest of your week and a good weekend.
Thank you. Thank
All
you. It was
right.
such a blast.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks so much.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.